Hi, everyone. This is Trey Parker's voice.
And this is Matt Stone's voice.
And this is us doing commentary. This is our voices doing commentary.
We haven't done a lot of commentary. We're going to try to do more than a commentary mini on this. We've been doing that for a long time. We're going to try to
What
make
happens
it to
is
the
we
end.
always do commentary, and then we end up saying things that are illegal and really offensive, and they cut it out. So it always ends up being 5 minutes long anyway. So then we decided, well, let's just do 5 minutes worth of stuff, because then, odds are we'll just talk about the show and we won't start saying horrible things about people. But this time we came up with an idea where we're letting them, if whoever's doing the DVD, if they need to edit something that we've said, then you're just going to hear this. So if you hear that music, it means that we were saying something illegal
or something that would get Comedy Central sued.
In trouble. Yeah.
So They have a legal department that listens to this and makes sure we don't say anything that'll get them sued.
So anyway, we're into Imagination Land. This is an idea we had for a long time. The idea about terrorists attacking our imagination we had for a long time, and we'd been wanting to do, and it was kind of one of those ideas that we kept talking to, in sort of the middle of the run. We'd be like, oh, let's do that Imagination Land idea now, and then the animators would be like, dude, there's no way. I mean, we can't, it was just too big of an idea to kind of pull off in the middle of a run. But actually right now we should talk a little about Tom Cruise and Scientology. Raping babies. And now back to Imagination Land. I just wanted to see if the music thing would work. So
Yeah.
I have no idea now.
I think they probably didn't hear anything but music.
I'm assuming they covered it. I hope
Considering
they did,
what you said about Tom Cruise. So anyway, Imagination Land, it is an idea we had for a while, and when we got into making it, it was, we kind of decided to really, and kind of the reason it became a multi-parter was we kind of decided to use that form of a kid going to Imagination Land, of kind of like the Narnia movies, and like, of course, the big one being Harry Potter, where a kid gets taken from his shitty normal life and taken to this wonderful world where they are a prince or a king or special, and that's
the kid
kind of
is almost
formula.
always like an orphan or something.
An orphan, they have really mean parents. Yeah. It's a pretty classic thing. So, we decided that could give us kind of a form for the Imagination Land part of it. But it really didn't start to really take off until we kind of coupled it with Kyle having to suck Cartman's balls.
Yeah.
And that's when the whole thing really started.
We had the whole
make some
theme
sense.
of, let's do terrorists attacking our imagination because of the double entendre of that, whole thing. And so we had that for a long time. But then finally we came up with this idea of how we would get into the show. And we just kind of threw out, and then Cartman can, bet him that he saw the leprechaun. And then all of a sudden we had the ball-sucking thing. And then we were like, okay, well, now we have a trilogy. Now we have a trilogy for sure.
And actually, we did entertain for a few weeks when we were working on this last summer, making this another South Park movie.
Yeah.
Because it felt like, well, this is maybe a big enough idea. It could hold... it could hold all these ideas as a big enough theme.
Not the ball-sucking part, but the actual, the actual smart part of it.
Yeah, the actual smart part of it could. But I think we made the right decision. It felt like, it felt more like, it kind of just felt like a trilogy. It kind of felt like a TV show.
As we got into it too, it was funny because lately, we've been. I think that a lot of the best writing that's coming out of Hollywood right now is TV drama stuff. I think some of the best writing is in shows like Battlestar Galactica and 24, and shows that it's sort of the new serial, format. And so I just wanted to do something because it was something to try, where you had to, pick up where you left off last week and keep going with it. And we literally did that. We had some broad strokes. I think we always knew that Imaginary Kyle was going to suck Cartman's imaginary balls at the end.
Right,
we knew that was going to happen.
We knew that was the end. We had our end figured out really early on.
And we knew that there would be a nuke in the government somehow. We kind of had that idea. But other than that, we literally made the first episode and it went on the air and it aired on Wednesday as usual, and everyone was like, wow, I can't wait to see what happens next week. And we're like, yeah, us too, because we had no idea.
Right, and we'd spend a lot more time making the first episode than a week, and so we were a little worried about the second and third episodes.
Yeah, we actually, with this episode, we actually came back and we did something we hardly ever do, which is we came in and we kind of worked on stuff even though we didn't have a show airing that week. We came in and worked on stuff in the summer.
We worked in our summer. It was like going to summer school.
It really, it sucked.
It's
pretty funny, too, because a lot of the stuff we worked on, we learned, for one thing, we learned why we shouldn't do that and why we don't do that, because basically we came here, and even though we came up with some good stuff, we just spun our wheels, and then it went from basically what it ended up being. It started off that way, and then all of a sudden we started going, oh, no, wait, okay, I know. The Imagination Land is one idea, and then we'll do the Cartman ball sucking as another story, and we tore the two shows apart, started to make them two different shows, and then all of a sudden we're like, okay, the Imagination Land is just one episode, and it was just sort of
And then for a while we had a leprechaun chase in the beginning, and we thought there would be a whole nother episode just about leprechauns.
Yeah, because we loved the leprechaun chase, and we already had that animated, and we're like, oh, but that scene's so good, so maybe we'll just keep the leprechaun in, and then we'll keep it for the Halloween special, and it can be a leprechaun that gets bitten by a werewolf and becomes a wereprechaun.
Yeah, and then gets bitten by a vampire.
See, this is what happens when we don't have a show airing that week.
And it becomes a wereprechaun pyre, and then
it gets killed by a zombie,
and
then it comes back to life, so then it's a zombie wereprechaun pyre. And then it turns out it's actually an alien.
Yeah. We actually had that idea for an episode. You might see it next Halloween.
Yeah, actually. As soon as we start running out of ideas, you'll be seeing the zombie wereprechaun pyre for sure.
Let's go back to Imagination Land. This scene here where the boys get taken to Imagination Land, this was why we kind of went back and forth on the leprechaun thing, because we really did think for a while that to do the Imagination Land justice, to get into it and have it be funny in that kind of Harry Potter, Narnia kind of way, that the show shouldn't start with a leprechaun. It should start with the power goes out, or the parents saying, right, why don't you guys go outside and use your imagination? So that you have that classic thing where the kids are outside going,
having to use their imagination. What are we going to do? How do we do that?
And then he shows up, and it felt like, well, we needed that kind of pure open. So for a lot of time, for a while, this scene was like the second scene of the show. The first one being where the kids are kicked outside and told they can't. They need to use their imaginations.
Then we spent a lot of time trying to figure out how we could go from this to the ball sucking thing. Then they were going to see,
and then they were going to bet about when they see a leprechaun in Imagination Land.
But anyway, I'm
glad it ended up the way it did. But it did take a long time to figure out how to get into this, because there was going to be a theme, and we ended up bailing on it. In the beginning, there was going to be that theme of why don't you go use your imagination, this kind of thing. Kids don't use their imaginations anymore; they're kind of too busy texting and playing Xbox and shit. And then we were going to show how bad their imaginations really are. Yeah. And maybe they shouldn't use their imagination.
There was a whole lot of different ideas with imagination. And then I remember that we just sort of held on to it, because we're like, well, we don't know what to do. Let's just hold on to it, and we'll do the run of South Park without using this. Right. That's, first of all, that's never going to happen. So it was the idea that we're going to somewhere be in the middle of a run of South Park and have a show that's kind of done and not use it. But we thought, okay, well, let's just hang on to it and we'll figure out what to do with it. And then by the third week, we were like, okay, we're out of ideas. We got to use this Imagination Land idea. And I remember we actually spent about an hour where we were going to just make it one episode. This entire thing was going to happen in one episode, which would have been insane.
Without the ball sucking, though.
And now looking at it now, the idea that this would have all been in one episode was ridiculous.
Yeah.
There's just too much going on. And it went from let's make it a 2-parter to let's make it a 7-parter.
We talked about making it a 5-parter because we'd done 2 episodes before this, which is, the funny thing is the first episode of this run was a Tourette syndrome, where Cartman pretends he has Tourette's. And then the second one was this brilliant episode called More Crap, where Randy takes the world's biggest crap, and then you find out Bono is actually a piece of crap. And so
there was a lot of hidden meanings behind that show that people didn't get.
And so they were pretty scat heavy South Parks. And then it was we thought it was so funny that we did one of those that was I love that show More Crap, but I just that sometimes we have these live in two worlds where we get to do total shit jokes, and then every once in a while we'll do something that's considered quote unquote smart, and then we win awards for it. And so then we just put just more crap. And then the next episode we did Imagination Land, which we knew we had worked on a long time. And
we knew it had at least a
and it had a lot of production value. It looked like, it was much bigger. The collegiate crowd, the college-educated crowd would be like, that's interesting.
So now we're in the area of the big scene. This is something we had pretty early on because we always knew that the big gist of it all is that terrorists have attacked our imagination. And so we're like, well, let's actually have the terrorists attack our imagination, and what would that look like? And so obviously we went right to Saving Private Ryan for part of that. And the thing about Tom Hanks is... Anyway, that's all I have to say about that. But so we, when you get into a show like this, unlike having to do the giant crab taking show.
By the way, this is what dates us: is we have phones like this in our show.
Yeah, I know.
We think of phones still look like this because we're old guys. And then later on, in like part 2 or 3, the Cartman's had a payphone.
Yeah, that's true.
Like people have fucking wireless phones and they talk on cell phones.
We still write stuff with payphones.
It's always got to be.
There's probably one payphone in all of DC now. But these shows are obviously hard when you're doing something this huge. That's sort of a not only you're kind of trying to say something, but you're also got just obviously a lot of big shit going down, and so it just becomes sort of a structural nightmare. But in a way, it was kind of nice to just be able to say, well, we'll just throw up all these balls in the air, and then we'll air it, and then we'll see what happens.
And then we'll deal with it next week.
Yeah.
Endings always kind of suck, and the fact that we had the ending that we wanted to do with the imaginary balls and Kyle's imaginary mouth, that was so. We knew that we actually had the last 3 minutes or 4 minutes of the entire trilogy figured out way ahead of time, and that was kind of weirdly soothing. But it was kind of nice, like as Trey said, the first week. Yeah, you could just not solve anything. And then the second episode, we didn't have to solve anything. You just keep the balls up in the air.
Right.
Which is fun.
Which is fun because it was, it's nice as trying to learn and become better writers. We doing exercises like this where it's a whole new experience and a whole new way to write where, it was really studying some of the 24 stuff and the Battlestar Galactica stuff and sort of how do they do that? How do they make you want to, tune in the next week? And we realized that it really has changed. It used to be in all these serials that you used to have before movies and stuff. I'm talking way back, in the black and white days and stuff. They would do those serials, and they would always, the cliffhanger was always, the hero went off a cliff, or the hero is drowning, or the hero's on fire, and will he live? And that was basically always the cliffhanger. And nowadays it always changed. It's never, very rarely is it Jack Bauer is. He's in peril. He's shot. Is he dead? I don't know. It's like it happens, but it's very rare. More often, it's that at the very end, he gets back up again, and he's really pissed, and he's heading off after him. And it's like he's up and going again, and that's the new cliffhanger. It's like, he's back up. Here he goes. And there's just a lot more sort of movement to. I think it's probably a lot of it's because people got fooled enough by saying, I know the guy's not going to burn to death and fall off the cliff. And So
I've seen too many Batmans where they live on the other side. That doesn't make sense.
So anymore. It was sort of the thing we realized, it's all about if we wanted to take that structure and then just put it to ball sucking. So it was really like, how do you take these ball sucking beats and put them in 24? It's all about, you've almost got your thing. You've almost found the nuclear device. You've almost got it, but then it's taken away from you, and then, we knew that in Act 2 somewhere there would be a point where he's right there with it, but then the next thing, he just loses opportunity, and then, sort of applying those ups and downs to ball sucking was sort of how we structured this entire thing.
Yeah, so it starts with him going and asking no, then he goes to court, then he gets a court order.
Right.
And then Kyle comes over to the house, and then he gets taken. So the end of episode 1 is he gets taken.
Right.
By the government.
And that's why the beats couldn't just be, he's after Kyle. He's trying to get Kyle to suck his ball. He's after Kyle. He's after Kyle. He's after Kyle. We realized, well, even in Act 2, he's got to get to a point where he's got Kyle. And just like in 24, you're going to end up in a room where
Jack Bauer has
two
the
guys,
guy.
and they're in that room. They're in that interrogation room, and you're like, oh, well, here we go. What's going to, and then something happens so that
And that's something that happens is that Cartman has to put on a little suit and take a picture of it. He just can't.
Yeah. If he could have, Kyle was fully ready to suck his balls at that moment in the show.
And then so in episode 2, to escalate it, we had to go all the way till Kyle's dead.
Yeah.
But then he's back, like the end of 24.
So now we're in the area of the famous director's scene. Famous to us. This was something we talked about a long time because we just love the idea. You know, obviously there's always this talk when terrorist things happen that the government goes to Hollywood because they're so creative.
I think they actually did after 9/11.
Yeah, no, there was an actual thing. And, you know, I mean, personally, I'm a big Sixth Sense fan. I think that was a great movie, and I was fooled by it. I got duped. You know, I was like, I didn't see it coming, and a lot of people tell me I'm stupid for not seeing it coming, the ending. And so, you know, I got suckered into all the other crap, Unbreakable and Signs and all, just these dog shit movies that was basically the exact same thing. It's just like, surprise at the end, and you're like, what? That's it, you know? And so
I got fooled by Sixth Sense too. It totally hit
and
me.
it's so it's really not weird. I mean, it's weird. It makes it because he had just tons of time and tons of, you know, he just sat and thought about that movie and thought about it. And he's making that movie at a time in his career when everyone's not telling him he's a genius.
Yes, he doesn't have the George Lucas syndrome yet.
And unfortunately, what happens is you make something like Sixth Sense, and then everyone tells you you're a genius and you're flawless, and then you start doing Unbreakable and Signs and all these other things, and you think that they're perfect and flawless, and what you really need is a producer to tell you, this isn't very interesting, and you need to spice this up here, and you know, all that crap.
Yeah, I read this thing about M. Night Shyamalan and Ding Dong and how you have to go to his office to read the script for like Signs or for anything.
Yeah, well, because if the ending gets out, then
the whole thing's ruined.
Yeah.
But it's just like, man, just fucking send your shit out so people can make it better. It's like if it's a good movie, you should. I mean, Sixth Sense, I actually think you could watch. I don't know about this. I've never watched it again.
No, I did. You can.
I think you could watch it again.
The guy has skill.
Because it's got
good.
Skills. I think that's a well-directed movie.
He's got skills as a director. It's just that he writes a script and then he shoots it and he thinks it's perfect and he puts it out and it's dog shit.
Now he takes his shit and he puts it out.
Whereas Mel Gibson, on the other hand, we've had a change of heart on Mel Gibson because when the whole you know, his whole Jesus movie came out and everything, when we did an episode about that actually.
And the Jesus movie isn't good.
No, it's not.
Cheesy and stupid.
But you know, we did a show about that and we just made him into a loon because basically that's what he seemed like, was just a loon, and everyone's like, okay, well, you just hate Mel Gibson. But then, you know, there was always this thing in the back. It was like, yeah, but you know, I could never argue, like even Braveheart, for instance, which is not a great piece of cinema, but it's solid. It's structurally solid. It's well done. It's well directed. You can't really argue it. And so then he came out with Apocalypto. And I sat and watched it on TV, and I was like, God damn it, this guy knows structure. It's not, not a fantastic movie, but way better than anything M. Night Shyamalan and Ding Dong has done, you know, since Sixth Sense. But, you know, it's structurally, the guy knows how to make movies, and he's insane, and that's why it's interesting to watch his movies.
When he yelled at the cops in Malibu, that was probably one of the better days of my life. It just confirmed. It was like everyone was on, you know, there was this huge argument whether he was an anti-Semite or not. And people really staked their territory. I mean, you had to kind of take a side.
Yeah.
You know, and it was like, no, he's not, I know. And then he just fucking went and yelled Jew and shit. Yeah. Just went crazy about it that night. That was the best thing.
So it ended up in the show like basically exactly how we feel. Like we still think he's totally crazy and out of his mind.
But he's talented.
But son of a bitch knows structure.
Since he's gotten totally insane, he's now one of my favorite directors.
Yeah.
I'm more interested, like, the next Mel Gibson movie that comes out, I will definitely go see.
Right.
Like Apocalypto, I was like, I'm seeing that movie. I saw it on the first day in the movie theater. I don't get to see shit. I never see movies. I was on the first day in the movie theater, and I will be there for his next movie. First day. Mel Gibson, I love you. We should have got him to do his own voice. I wonder if he would.
I doubt it. He's way too big time for us.
Fuck you guys. I'm not doing that. So here, of course, this is the first time you see Cartman dressed up because he needs to be wearing either a king or a pope or a sultan costume to get his balls sucked. Of course.
Yeah, we had stuff like this in, and some of these lines got cut out that are now back in this DVD version. But you know, there was always, especially from the sort of the younger audience, the kids were just like, I don't get why Cartman wants Kyle to suck his balls so much. I mean, why is he gay all of a sudden? And I guess that's because when you're a kid, you haven't gotten to that level of maturity where you understand that.
Yeah. That level of immaturity where you are totally immature about sucking balls.
And that it has nothing to do with anything sexual, that it's just the ultimate way that Cartman can humiliate Kyle, and that's what this is all about.
That level of maturity. So as you can see here, this is the... This exact scene has happened in 24, minus balls.
Yeah,
Make the
you're
balls
so
into a
close
nuke.
to the balls, but then the government comes and takes the balls away from you.
It's just
That's happened in 24, 800
7,000
times.
times, yeah.
Jack Bauer just about has the balls in his mouth, and then all of a sudden the government comes and rips the balls away.
You can taste them, and they're just right there.
Jack Bauer could almost taste those balls.
This was another thing we changed for the DVD. Actually, what happened on this first episode was that it was late on the Tuesday that we were doing it, and what was supposed to happen was that in the first episode, all the evil stuff from behind the wall was going to bust out and start raising hell in the good part of Imagination Land, and then you would cut on Butters and people running away. But it got to be about 4 o'clock in the morning. We had about 3 or 4 hours left to make the show totally done.
That night.
It had to be done by 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. It's 4 o'clock in the morning, and we still have storyboards in this part, and it's not going to get done.
So, we had all that stuff where Alien and Predator came out.
All that was going to happen in the first episode, yeah. So then we basically had to recut it at 4 o'clock in the morning.
At 4 o'clock in the morning, we had not only recut it, but we had to
it.
rewrite it. We had to go in and just do this whole thing and said,
okay,
we'll make this whole. He'll do this little speech, and it'll just be this kind of diversion, and then the wall will just start coming down, and then that'll be
what you
the
cut
cliffhanger.
out.
And at the time, we were really bummed out. We thought, we always do this to ourselves, where it's early morning Wednesday, the show's going on that night. We've been here for 20 more hours working on the show, and we just thought, oh my God, okay, well, we worked so hard on this thing, and now it's ruined. We just thought it was the most horrible. Everyone was going to be so unsatisfied with that ending, but it actually turned out to be okay. People were kind of like, what's behind the wall? What's behind the wall? Which again, we were like, we have no fucking idea.
We didn't know it. We didn't really know at the
except
time.
for Alien and Predator, we knew that.
We didn't really know what was going to be specifically behind the wall. But then another thing that happened was that in our late night confusion, our confused late night minds, we had the terrorists put Rockety Rocket into the wall but not die. So we had to have them die in episode 2, which was totally stupid.
Oh, yeah.
So in this version, now they die like suicide bombers.
Yeah, because it was a shitty shot where they had to just get killed by a monster anyway. Because it was just something. We did that, I remember.
So dumb. Like the next day, we're
Friday,
like,
we're like,
had them
why didn't they just die in the wall? Now we got to deal with them.
Now we got to
somehow.
figure out what the terrorists are doing.
Yeah, that was dumb.